So now that the 2026 NBA Summer League is officially over, I wanted to grade the performance of every single draft pick from the 2026 NBA Draft. So I'll be giving each player a letter grade from A+ all the way down to an F based on how I thought they performed in Las Vegas, but also including the California Classic and the Salt Lake City Summer League. So we have 60 different players to talk about, so let's jump into it. And we're going to start at the very top with the #1 overall pick, AJ Dybantsa, who only needed 2 games to show Washington enough and why they took him first. He averaged 25 points, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, and 1.5 blocks, and he constantly attacked the rim and was able to earn 14 free throws in those 2 games alone. The shooting numbers and those percentages were rough to say the least, especially going 1 for 11 from the 3-point line, but the shot creation he has was obvious. He was able to get downhill, he pulled up comfortably from the mid-range, and competed defensively, which was encouraging, and Washington was right to shut him down early in my opinion. And although it looks like the jumper still needs some work, I think the physical tools and the two-way upside looks real from Dybantsa, and I'm giving him an A grade for his Summer League performance. Up next, we have the #2 pick in Darren Peterson, and he had a much more uneven summer, but the flashes that he showed were extremely special. He ended up averaging 20.7 points per game, 4 assists, and 1.5 blocks, although he shot just 30.8% from the field and committed nearly 5 turnovers per game. But Peterson's footwork, his handle, and his ability to create separation already look NBA ready, and the encouraging part was seeing him attack the rim and create for his teammates more than he did at Kansas last year, and he won't have to do as much there in Utah with everyone else, so that should help some of his turnovers. But overall, his efficiency keeps him from being an A for me, yet I do think the star potential was obvious, and I'm giving him an A- grade. And now we get to Cameron Boozer, who looked like the most NBA-ready player in this class from the Summer League. Across his 6 games in Las Vegas, he averaged 18.5 points, 8 rebounds, 3.5 assists, nearly 2 steals on 45% shooting. And Boozer showed the ability to handle the ball, punish smaller defenders. He always made the smart pass and even knocked down enough threes to keep defenses honest. And Memphis can use him at a power forward, but also as a small ball center, it seems, which makes his fit at the next level even cleaner. And although he may not have the flashiest game, it just seems like he consistently controls the possession and helps his team win, and he got the Grizzlies to the Summer League championship. And to me, Boozer earns an A grade and is definitely going to be one of the top picks for Rookie of the Year. Now we get to Caleb Wilson, and he was the biggest surprise of the Summer League to me. He ended up averaging 23.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks while shooting 50% overall, but the bigger mark was going 42% from 3. And the wild part is that Wilson hit just 7 threes in his first game alone after making only 7 during his entire freshman season at North Carolina. And if that jumper is real, his ceiling at the next level changes in my opinion. And Chicago already knew about his athleticism, his motor, and his versatility on the defensive end, but now he looked comfortable creating off the dribble and spacing the floor, and he definitely had some downsides with his turnovers and his free throw shooting, which were both ugly, but the upside was impossible to ignore, and Wilson absolutely gets an A+ grade for me and looks like Chicago's new franchise centerpiece. Now we get to the 5th pick, which was Keaton Wagler, and he definitely had a rocky start to say the least to his Summer League, but ended up settling down near the end. He averaged 18 points and 3 assists, but shot only 38.5% from the field and struggled to handle the physicality of the league early. The encouraging moments, though, came when he was able to find space, create his own jumper, and play with confidence in the later half of the schedule of the Summer League for the Clippers. And I don't think Los Angeles needs him to carry the offense right away. Obviously, he's going to be playing off the ball next to Darius Garland, which could help him simplify his role and let his shooting become his main weapon, but he still needs strength, he needs consistency, and he's going to need to have a bigger impact on the defensive end. And so overall, I'm giving Wagler a C+ because the scoring volume was solid the later part of the Summer League, but the performance overall just felt incomplete to me. Next, we got Michael Brown Jr., who gave Brooklyn plenty to feel good about in the Summer League. He averaged 16.7 points, 4 assists, and 1.7 steals in only 22.5 minutes per game. Brown opened Las Vegas with 20 points and immediately showed his burst, his shooting range, and the ability to create tough looks. He also competed defensively, jumping the passing lanes and fighting through screens, and the efficiency dipped in his final game, but I think his overall package looked like a clean fix next to Yegor Dimon, and Dimon can handle size and playmaking responsibility, while Brown's going to be able to come into the backcourt and add speed and more scoring pressure. And I'm giving Brown a B+ for his Summer League performance, as he already looks like one of the most exciting pieces in Brooklyn's young backcourt. Next, we got Darius Acuff Jr., the 7th overall pick in this year's draft, and he showed exactly why his rookie season could be a roller coaster for the Kings. He averaged 19 points and 5.5 assists and finished his run with 26 points against Brooklyn. And Acuff showed the ability to score from all 3 levels. He plays with extreme confidence and made better reads than the box score suggests, in my opinion. But the biggest problem was his efficiency overall. He shot 36.5% overall, 26.5% from 3, and turned the ball over nearly 5 times per game, and Sacramento gave him the ball constantly, so some mistakes were expected, but the defense was not good for him either. And I'm giving Acuff a B- for his performance. I think the talent from him is so obvious, but he's gonna have to have better decision making, be more efficient on the offensive end, and just show more effort on the defensive side of things. Next up, we got Kingston Flemings, and although he didn't score much in the Summer League, I still thought he showed Atlanta enough on how he can help them early on this season. In his 2 Las Vegas games, Flemings averaged 6.5 assists, 4 rebounds, and 1 block, while pushing the pace and creating easy looks for his teammates. His speed and feel for the game stood out more than his 7 points per game to me, and the concerns, though, are familiar to some of these other rookies. He shot just 33.5% from the field, struggled finishing at the rim at times, and to turn the ball over a bit too often, and Atlanta's not going to need him to be a primary scorer immediately with their young core that's around him, so he's going to be able to come in, probably run the second unit, and show how he can defend and keep the offense moving. And overall, I'm giving Flemings a B+ for the Summer League, because outside of his scoring, I thought he played extremely well for the Hawks. Then the 9th pick was Morez Johnson Jr. for Dallas, and he made an immediate statement in the Summer League, scoring 27 points, grabbing 8 boards, then 3 steals and 2 blocks in his opener against the Golden State Warriors. And then he only played 2 games and finished averaging 18.5 points on 64% shooting, along with 2.5 steals and 3 blocks per game. And even when his scoring dropped in the second game, his defense never disappeared. He showed the ability to switch, protect the rim, run the floor, and bring physicality, which I think is going to be helpful there in Dallas next to Cooper Flagg. My biggest question remaining, though, is whether he's going to have enough to space the floor and play power forward full-time for Dallas, but calf soreness is what ended up ending his run so early in Las Vegas, so we didn't necessarily get that answer, but I still think overall his impact was great for the Mavericks, and I'm giving Johnson an A- grade for his Summer League. Then we get to Brayden Burries, and Burries to me looked like one of the best players in all of Las Vegas. He averaged 23.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 2 steals, and a block per game, while shooting 50% from the field. And even more impressive to me was that he handled an offensive role without turning the ball over much. Burries scored on and off the ball, he defended multiple positions, and he consistently made the right reads. And Milwaukee is obviously beginning their new era now that Giannis is gone, and Burries already looks like a building block who deserves minutes immediately, and he was viewed as a polished prospect coming into it, but the scoring upside that he showed looked higher than expected, and I have to give Burries an A+ grade for his Summer League, and to me, he was the Summer League MVP. Next up, it's Yaxel Lendeborg with the Golden State Warriors, and from the jump, Lendeborg looked exactly like an older, ready-to-play rookie. Across his 6 games, he averaged 15 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 1.5 steals, while shooting 46% overall from the field. He also showed the ability to handle the ball, defend multiple positions, and helped Golden State go on to win the Summer League championship. His 21-point, 10-rebound performance in the title game against Memphis really showed how he naturally fits in a winning system, and Lendeborg showed he can screen, pass, rebound, and had the ability to make open threes without needing plays called for him, and I think that's going to be perfect there in Golden State, and I have to give him an A+ for leading his team to the Summer League championship, and he has the ability to start immediately for the Warriors next season. Next, we got his Michigan teammate, Ade Mara, and I think he had a solid Summer League, but it was slightly underwhelming to me. He averaged 8.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 1 block while shooting 66% from the field, but the passing was by far his best part to me. And at 7'3", Mara showed that he can see over defenses and create easy shots for his teammates from both the post or the elbow. He also finished efficiently around the rim and had 14 points, 7 rebounds, and and 6 assists in his final game. I think he truly got better as Summer League went on. The concerns though were definitely his mobility and shooting range, as he attempted only 1 3, and there were a lot of possessions where the pace looked too fast for him. But I do think he's fitting in the perfect spot for him there in Oklahoma City, as they're going to have the ability to develop him slowly behind their loaded roster. And overall, I'm giving Mara a C+ grade. Up next at number 13, it's Nate Ament, and I think he finished the Summer League way better than he started. He ended up scoring only 21 points across his first 3 games, but then broke out for 23 points in his 4th game in the Summer League against Charlotte. And overall, Ament ended up averaging 11 points, 5 rebounds, while shooting 50% from the field and 39% from 3, which was a good sign. He also showed the ability to draw fouls, which was one of his best skills at Tennessee as a freshman. However, the inconsistency though was expected, because Ament remains a project rather than immediate contributor, and we came into Summer League knowing that, and Milwaukee seems to be the right situation for him because the franchise can give him minutes without needing to rush the process. And I'm giving Ament a B-, which is a lot higher than I thought it was a few games before the end of Summer League, but I do think the flashes he showed at the end were promising. Then we got Hannes Steinbach, and I think right now he looked like one of the steals of the lottery in Summer League. He averaged 16 points, 9 rebounds while shooting 60.5% from the field and 50% from deep in Summer League. And his best game came against Milwaukee, where he finished with 27 points and 15 rebounds, with 7 of those being on the offensive glass. And Steinbach's hands, his positioning, and effort on the glass all translated from college to the Summer League. And Charlotte now is going to have the ability to surround him with shooters and let him create extra possessions without needing the ball. And to me, he also showed more polished rim pressure than he did in college at Washington, but I do think the defense still needs a bit of time. But overall, his fit at the next level is obvious, and I'm giving him an A grade, and he looks like Charlotte's long-term answer at the center position. Up next, we got Dalen Swain, and I think Swain had the roughest summer of any first-round pick from this year's draft. He averaged just 4.5 points while shooting 13% from the field and missed every 3-point attempt he took. And Chicago initially used him as a jumbo point guard in Summer League, and he looked uncomfortable there from the start. And one of his best qualities coming into the league was his ability to beat defenders off the dribble, which he did, but then he struggled finishing at the rim, was also turning down opportunities, and failed to create the defensive chaos his athleticism should produce. The good news though is that this is just Summer League, and that is not going to be the role that he sees in the NBA, as I think it's going to be a lot more simple, and he's going to be able to come in, defend wings, run in transition, and hopefully develop his jumper. But still, his overall Summer League performance was impossible to overlook, and I'm unfortunately giving Dalen Swain an F grade for his play in Vegas. Now we get to Bennett Sturtz, and he showed he can handle a scoring role with Oklahoma City there in Summer League. He ended up averaging nearly 18 points, roughly 3.5 assists, while shooting 50% from the field, which was highlighted by a 22-point performance against Denver. And Sturtz showed the ability to play under control. He found his space in the mid-range and gave the Thunder another dependable ball handler for their second unit this upcoming season. I think the biggest question, though, is his three-point shot. He was only 30% from deep in the Summer League, but I do think that number is going to improve, as he's a better shooter than that implies. And although Oklahoma City's rotation is crowded, I think his poise and what we've seen so far is going to give him a chance to be a real contributor. And overall, I'm giving Sturtz a B grade, as he looked ready to handle some minutes, but just not fully complete yet. Up next, we got Ibuka Okori, who did have some high highs, but also some low lows, and overall was just a bit inefficient in the Summer League. He averaged 18.5 points, 4.5 assists, and 2.5 steals for the Pistons, but only shot 36.4% from the field and just 17.5% from 3. Okori's speed on the court, though, was obvious. He pushed in transition, slipped through traffic, and created pressure at the rim, but his biggest problem was finishing through contact and over larger defenders. But I do think Detroit is going to use him in their offense early on, and even though he was inefficient at times, he still found ways to affect games when his shot wasn't falling, including a 7-steal performance in one of his games. I'm giving Okori a B grade, as I do think his production was strong, but the efficiency is what keeps his grade from climbing higher. Christian Anderson was the 18th pick in this year's draft, and at the Summer League, he had a disappointing shooting performance, but I thought he showed some real playmaking value. He ended up averaging 10.5 points, 4 assists, while shooting 31.5% overall, but just 21% from 3, and that's extremely concerning for me for a guard whose jumper is supposed to be his most NBA-ready skill set. But the biggest positive for Anderson from Summer League was his passing, as he averaged 9 assists across his final 2 games for the Hornets and repeatedly created open looks. And right now, I think Charlotte is going to be using him as a backup behind Kobe White, as he's just not ready to replace what they lost with LaMelo Ball going to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And overall, I'm giving Anderson a C- grade for his Summer League, as I think there were some highlights, but the shooting woes were definitely concerning for me. Next, we got Allen Graves from the Toronto Raptors, and to be honest, he looked like a much better player than I originally expected. He averaged 17.7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2.5 steals, and 1 block per game in the Summer League, while shooting 51% overall and an absurd 50% from 3. And Graves filled every column and never needed the offense to be built around him, as he defended, he rebounded, he moved the ball, and punished defenses when he was open. And we know Toronto already has plenty of wings, but Graves has made a strong case for immediate rotation minutes with the Raptors, because it seems like his game is going to fit almost any lineup, as he can provide shooting without becoming a target on the defensive end. And I have to give Graves an A grade for his Summer League performance, as he was one of the most complete and efficient rookies that we had in Las Vegas. Now, the 20th pick in the draft was Jaden Quaintance, but he didn't play in the Summer League because he's recovering from a right knee injury and surgery, so I'm not going to be giving him a grade. And the same goes for Kareem Lopez, the 21st pick in the draft, as he played only 11 minutes for the Memphis Grizzlies due to a hamstring strain, so I just don't think there was enough there to give him a fair grade either. But then we get to pick number 22, LeBaron Philon Jr. from the Philadelphia 76ers, and I already thought he was one of the biggest steals in the NBA draft, and in the Summer League, he looked like another promising young guard for the 76ers. He averaged 18.5 points, 6 assists, 1.5 steals, while playing 32 minutes per game, and Philon consistently was able to create separation. He attacked the basket with confidence and generated offense for both himself and his teammates, and although the shooting percentages weren't necessarily the best, as he shot around 38% overall and just 26% from 3, I do think his command of the ball looked advanced for a guy that went 22nd in the draft, and we also saw shooting struggles from other rookies that were above him, and Philadelphia is going to be able to bring him along behind its veteran guards while using his pace and creativity off the bench and in that second unit. So I'm giving Philon an A- for his overall performance in Summer League, as I do think the efficiency needs work, but he looked like a clear first rounder and definitely one of the biggest steals of the draft. Now we have Zuby Ejiofor, the 23rd pick from the Atlanta Hawks in this year's draft, and I think in the Summer League, he reinforced exactly what we thought his strengths were and what made Atlanta select him so early on. He averaged 12.5 points, 5 rebounds, 1.5 steals, and 1.5 blocks across his 2 games in Las Vegas, but he also hit 3 of 7 shots from deep, which I think is encouraging. And Ejiofor always brings physicality. He brought rim protection and energy around the basket as well, and he was especially dominant on the glass during the Salt Lake City Summer League before heading to Las Vegas. And the encouraging surprise to me was his shooting touch, because if he's able to space the floor even a little bit, I think that's going to skyrocket his value for the Hawks. And right now, it seems like Atlanta's going to be able to plug him into a backup big minutes without asking him to create much. So I'm giving Ejiofor a B+ overall, as he didn't necessarily wow me like crazy, but the existing tools and the improved shooting look like they are going to translate nicely to the next level. Next up, we have Cameron Carr, and once again, he just looks like excellent value for the Lakers, as they got him with the 24th pick. He ended up averaging 18 points in 4 Las Vegas games and consistently showed on-ball creation, athletic finishing, and effort on the defensive end, which I think was important. Carr's shooting definitely cooled after the California Classic, especially from 3, as he only made 19%, but the flashes that we saw in California, I think, were more important than the final percentage. He was able to create and hit difficult shots, attack closeouts, competed at the point of attack, and added nearly 1 steal and 1 block per game, which I think is huge, because we were worried about what he was going to look like on the defensive end. And the Lakers need affordable young players who can contribute immediately around Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, and Carr looks absolutely capable of earning rotation minutes immediately, and I'm giving him an A- grade for his Summer League overall, as the jumper was a bit inconsistent in Las Vegas, but everything else looks absolutely NBA ready. Next, it's the 25th overall pick in Sergio De La Reyna for the Dallas Mavericks, and he had one of the strangest summer league performances to me in this class. Now, he only averaged 8 points per game and shot 27% from the field, which I thought was surprising because I thought he would be a better shooter coming into the summer league, but he ended up leading every player in Las Vegas with nearly 9 assists per game, and De La Reyna set Dallas summer league records with 12 assists and then 14 assists in consecutive games. And after they gave him the keys to the offense, he showed off his vision, his size, and the ability to deliver passes through traffic that already look NBA ready. And I know the scoring and shooting were rough, but from what I saw from De La Reyna, he's going to get minutes this season, and we know that Dallas actually just traded away Ryan Nembhard, and so De La Reyna is going to probably claim that backup guard role, and I'm giving him a B+ for what he did in Summer League, and I'm extremely excited to see what he's going to do this season with the Mavericks. At number 26, it's Taurus Reed Jr., and I thought he rebounded the ball extremely well in Summer League, but didn't necessarily show enough in any other areas. He averaged 8.7 rebounds and 2.3 assists, but only scored 7.5 points per game on 36% shooting, which is really concerning considering that he's not taking those shots from deep. Also, he only blocked 1 shot in nearly 70 total minutes, despite being drafted for his presence on the interior. He also committed 7 turnovers in 3 games, which isn't the best for a big man, and San Antonio is going to need him to provide physical center minutes with Jaden Quains unavailable for the beginning of the season. And I think overall his Summer League results were mixed, but I do think his rebounding gives him a foundation. He's just going to need to be more efficient on the offensive end, so I'm giving him a C grade. I thought he competed well, but he didn't separate himself from other bigs at this level. Next, it's Chris Sinac Jr. with the Boston Celtics, and I think Sinac showed exactly why Boston was willing to bet on his tools with the 27th overall pick in the draft. He averaged 8 rebounds, nearly 3 blocks, in just 23.5 minutes per game, and looks like he's going to give the Celtics size and rim protection behind their new big Mitchell Robinson. And Sinac also flashed some offensive variety, including some drives from the perimeter and useful pick and roll finishing. But overall, the problem was his consistency on that end of the floor. He shot just 36.5% overall, 27% from 3, and then turned the ball over a bit, which wasn't necessarily the best. But Boston is a team that doesn't need him to be polished right away. They're just going to need him to rebound, protect the paint, and develop at a nice rate. And overall, I'm giving Sinac a B. I think his floor is raw, but the upside was easy to see in Summer League. At number 28, it was Joshua Jefferson with the Brooklyn Nets, and Jefferson had a difficult return after months of ankle rehabilitation, to say the least. With the Nets in the Summer League, he averaged just 7.5 points and 2 steals, but shot 33% overall and only 12.5% from 3. Jefferson also failed to make much of an impact on the glass, which was disappointing for a forward that's going to be fighting through a crowded Brooklyn depth chart, and I think the defensive activity was encouraging to say the least, and nobody should panic after only 3 games in Summer League, especially coming off of an injury. But still, I think Brooklyn needed him to look closer to a rotation option, and that's what I was expecting. And right now, he just left Las Vegas not looking as good as a lot of players on this Nets roster. So overall, I'm giving Jefferson a D+ for his performance. I think he definitely had the effort, but the offense and rebounding were just not ready and not where I expected them to be. The 29th pick in the draft was Alex Karaban, and he had a terrible start to his Summer League, but then finished with 2 encouraging performances. Now, he missed the Kings games in the California Classic with an injury, and then went scoreless in his debut in Las Vegas, but ended up averaging 8.5 points on 38% shooting overall. He erupted for 21 points with 5 threes in his second game against Boston, and then followed that up with an efficient 14-point performance in his finale of the Summer League. And Sacramento traded back into the first round for Karaban because of his shooting, his size, and his ability to fit beside creators. And I do think his improvement in his last 2 games saved his summer, but the overall body of work was still underwhelming, especially his efficiency, which I thought would be way better. So I'm giving Karaban a C- grade. He definitely eventually found his rhythm, but it took a bit too long in my opinion. And rounding out the first round draft picks at number 30, we have Koa Pete, and honestly, Pete made a lot of people question why he fell so far in Summer League. He averaged 17 points, 5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and 1.5 steals, while shooting 51% from the field during the Summer League. Pete showed the ability to attack the paint, play through contact, and brought energy on both ends of the floor. And Phoenix straight up to get him, and it looks like he's going to have the ability to contribute right away, but the obvious concern still remains, and that's his jumper. He only attempted 2 threes across his 4 games in Las Vegas and missed both of them, and I think at the next level, the defense is going to force him to prove he can space the floor, and because of that, I'm giving Pete a B+. The production was strong, but I think these shooting questions still remain, and was one of the things I really wish he was going to show in the Summer League. Now, starting off the second round, we had Bruce Thornton as the 31st overall pick, and honestly, in the Summer League, he looked ready to help Houston immediately. He averaged 18.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and 2.5 steals while hitting 40.5% from 3, and Thornton showed the ability to pressure the ball. He played with strength on both ends and made smart decisions as a secondary creator, and his 39% overall shooting showed that he struggled a bit on the inside of the arc, but the defense and the spot-up shooting could give him a clear role. I'm giving Thornton an A- grade for his Summer League and think he could compete for some rotation minutes immediately with the Rockets. And the 32nd pick was Richie Saunders for the Memphis Grizzlies, but he did not play as he's still recovering from a torn ACL, so he's not going to receive a grade. But then at number 33, we had Isaiah Evans, who struggled with the skill that was supposed to translate the fastest, and that's his shooting. Now, he averaged nearly 13 points per game, but shot 32.5% overall and 26.5% from deep, including 2 for 15 in his debut. And physical defenders looked like they were able to disrupt his handle and forced him into rush shots, and Minnesota is not going to need immediate production from him, so he's going to be able to develop behind a deep guard rotation they have there in Minnesota. And I do think his defensive effort was a good sign to see, but overall I'm giving Evans a C grade because the jumper was disappointing, and that was the biggest reason why he was drafted where he was. But now we get to Meleek Thomas, who was the 34th pick in this year's draft by the Cleveland Cavaliers, and honestly, he looked like the biggest steal of the Summer League. He averaged 27.5 points on 50% shooting and 44% from deep, while also adding in 4 assists and 2 steals per game. And Thomas showed the ability to create shots from anywhere and played with some extreme confidence. And Cleveland already has a lot of veteran guards like Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, but this scoring was too explosive to ignore from Thomas, and he deserves a real opportunity off the bench for the Cavaliers. And I have to give Meleek Thomas an A+ grade for his Summer League performance, because a player selected this late should not have looked as dominant as Thomas did. Next up, we got Trevon Brazile, who was the 35th pick by the Denver Nuggets, and he looked like an ideal front court piece next to Nikola Jokic in the Summer League. He averaged 19 points and 8.5 rebounds while shooting 47.5% from 3, and his best game featured a 32-point performance where he made 6 threes against Oklahoma City. Brazile showed the ability to run the floor, protect the rim, space the court, and all of that is going to fit perfectly in Denver's offense, and he could also handle some backup center minutes, I believe. So I'm giving Brazile an A grade for his performance, and Denver may have found another second-round contributor for their roster. Now we're at Baba Miller, the 36th pick in this year's draft, and I think he showed a combination of size and mobility that's extremely intriguing for the Clippers. The 6'11" forward averaged 12 points on 62% shooting, blocked 1.5 shots per game, and hit half of his limited 3-point attempts, which was encouraging. Miller attacked closeouts, he moved well in transition, and defended multiple areas on the floor, and his half-court offense remains unfinished to say the least, but the Clippers can definitely develop him as a versatile 3-and-D forward. I'm giving Miller a B+ grade for his performance in the Summer League. Then the 37th pick was Ryan Conwell, and although he played only once in Las Vegas because of a hip injury, his California Classic performance gave Miami enough evidence as to what he can do. During the California Classic, he averaged 21 points, 5 rebounds, and 3.5 assists, and then he scored 19 points without a turnover in his one game in Las Vegas. And Conwell showed the ability to attack more than I expected instead of just relying on threes, and his shooting and strength should fit well around Giannis Antetokounmpo, Bam Adebayo, and this new Heat roster, and I'm giving Conwell an A- grade despite the limited sample size in Las Vegas. Next up, we got Brayden Smith from the Indiana Pacers, and I think in the Summer League, he definitely proved his passing belongs in the NBA, but his scoring did not live up to it. He averaged 7 assists and 1.5 steals per game, but shot only 26.5% overall and 29% from 3. His size made getting separation difficult against longer guards that were guarding him, and Indiana can definitely develop in the G League, which I think is what's going to happen because he's going to have to become a reliable shooter in order to survive in the NBA. I'm giving Smith a C- grade. I think his vision and passing were obviously excellent and what we expected, but the offensive limitations from a shooting standpoint were impossible to miss. The 39th pick in the draft was Jack Kyle, former the New York Knicks, and he had a mixed but encouraging summer league for me. He averaged nearly 9 points, 3.5 assists, and 2 steals while shooting poorly from the field and from 3. The numbers, though, do not capture his quick decisions, his accurate passes to cutters, and his activity on the defensive end, and I think Kyle also flashed difficult pull-ups and downhill attacks, but his handle remains loose, and New York can afford to develop him slowly, especially given that they're coming off of a championship run, but I'm giving Kyle a B- grade because I do think he showed some intriguing tools that could help New York in a few years. Next up, we got Dylan Mitchell, the 40th pick in the draft for the Boston Celtics, and I think he showed a real path in the Summer League toward becoming a useful wing in the Celtics offense. He averaged 13 points, 5 rebounds, nearly 3 steals, and 1.5 blocks per game, while shooting 47% overall, and his 24-point game against Charlotte included 6 steals and 2 blocks and was one of the best performances that we had of any rookie in the Summer League, and Mitchell's athleticism and defensive instincts were obvious and stood out, but the jumper still needs work. Although he did hit 37.5% from 3 during the Summer League, I'm giving him a B+ grade. I think Boston can develop the shot while using his energy and defense, and he definitely impressed more than a lot of guys around this range. The 41st pick in the draft was Otega Oweh for the Oklahoma City Thunder, but he played only 2 games in the Salt Lake City Summer League before suffering a lower leg injuries, and there just wasn't enough that I saw in order to give him a fair grade, so I'm leaving him off. But the 42nd pick was Jacoby Gillespie for the San Antonio Spurs, and overall in the Summer League, he produced solid numbers, but did not shoot efficiently. He averaged 16 points, 4.5 assists, and 2 steals while hitting 40% overall, but just 31% from 3. Gillespie showed the ability, though, to control possessions. He created for his teammates and became one of only 2 second-round picks in the Summer League to average at least 15 points and 4 assists, and San Antonio is going to need reserve guard depth, so the opportunity for him is real, and I'm giving him a C+ grade because I did like the playmaking, but the jumper and overall efficiency definitely needs some improvement. Then we got Tyler Bilodeau for the Brooklyn Nets, and Bilodeau followed a strong California Classic with a brutal stretch in Las Vegas, to say the least. He averaged only 4.5 points while shooting 22.5% overall and 15.5% from 3, and that is especially concerning because shooting is supposed to be his biggest and best skill set at the next level. His size, though, still gives Brooklyn an interesting floor spacing option when the jumper is falling, but he showed little else when it disappeared. I'm giving Bilodeau a C- because I do think what he showed in the California Classic was good enough to prevent him from getting an even lower grade. Then at number 44, we got another San Antonio Spurs rookie in Meleek Brown, and he delivered exactly what San Antonio drafted him to provide. He averaged 6.5 rebounds, 2 assists, and nearly 3 steals per game while shooting efficiently in a low-volume offensive role, which was to be expected. But Brown disrupted passing lanes, he switched across positions, and created extra possessions without needing the ball in his hands, and he is unlikely to score much, but the Spurs already have creators around him, so I'm giving Brown a B- because his defense looks ready to earn him some spot minutes immediately. Then we get to Emanuel Sharp, who was the 45th pick in the draft, and he looked like a second-round guard who could play immediately for the Kings. He averaged 16 points, hit 38% from 3, and collected 3 steals per game. Sharp played with physicality, confidence, and constant activity on the defensive end, and made life difficult for Keaton Wagler in his Las Vegas debut. And Sacramento needs reliable two-way guards around Darius Acuff, and Sharp's shooting makes his fit clean for this roster. I'm giving him a B+ grade. I think he looked composed, he was competitive on both ends of the floor, and more complete than his draft position suggested. Up next, it's Felix Okpara with the Washington Wizards, and Okpara in the Summer League gave Washington dependable work on the interior. He averaged 8 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks in only 22 minutes per game during the Summer League, and Okpara finished efficiently around the rim, protected the basket, and played within his role while sharing the spotlight with AJ Dybantsa, Trey Johnson, and Will Riley. Now, he didn't create much offense or separate himself as a future starter, but that wasn't expected, and I'm giving Okpara a C+ grade, as I think he looked capable of developing into a useful backup big in the NBA one day. Next is the 47th pick from the New York Knicks, and it's Tyler Nickel, and Nickel showed one elite skill immediately, and that's his shooting. He attempted 9 threes per game in the Summer League, but made 41.5% of them, finishing with nearly 4 made threes per contest, and Nickel fired off movement on pull-ups and in spot-up situations without hesitation, which I love to see. Now, the rest of his game remains limited, but New York can use specialists from the outside who can stretch defenses, and I'm giving Nickel a B+ grade, and I think for a late second round pick, proving one NBA ready skill like shooting is clearly a successful summer. The next pick in the draft was Toby Lawal at number 48, and I think he showed the athleticism that he has, but not enough development of his skills. He averaged just 6 points, 4 rebounds, and 1 block per game while shooting 23% from 3. Now, Lawal finished a few explosive plays and flashed defensive range, which was exciting, but his handle and jumper still remain major questions for the 6'7" forward, and Dallas is going to be able to give him time on a 2-way contract and let him develop in the G League. But for his Summer League performance, I'm giving him a C grade. The tools remain interesting, but I think his fit at the next level is still unclear until we see more development. But another guy that I think stood out was Bryce Hopkins from Denver, as he was one of the best Summer League players, especially for rookies. He was the 49th pick in the draft, but averaged 18 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 1.5 steals per game while shooting 53% from the field. And for the Nuggets, Hopkins played fast in transition. He showed the ability to score through contact and contribute across both ends without forcing possessions. And at 23 years old, he looked more comfortable than most rookies out there, which should help him compete for minutes quickly. I'm giving Hopkins an A grade, as I think Denver may have found another versatile forward who can outperform his draft position. And now we're at the 50th pick in the draft, and that was Jaden Bradley, and he looked far from ready for Toronto's rotation, to say the least. He averaged 6.5 points, 3 assists, and 3 turnovers while shooting just 32.5% overall. But what was most concerning for me was he failed to make a single 3 across his 5 games in Summer League. Bradley can defend and organize possessions, but we already knew that. I think NBA guards are going to have to punish defenders who go under screens, and he did not show the ability to do that whatsoever. Toronto can develop him on a 2-way deal in the G League, which was to be expected, but I'm giving Bradley a C- grade for his performance because the offensive limitations were extremely clear. Next, the 51st pick was Isaiah Nelson, and he barely had time to establish himself before fracturing his ankle in the Summer League. In 3 games, though, he averaged just 3 points, 3 rebounds, 1 steal, and 1 block in only 13.5 minutes per game. And I do think the injury will likely delay the start of his rookie season, but the production before it was limited. Orlando drafted him more as a developmental big, so patience was already to be expected with Nelson, but for what he did, I'm giving Nelson a D grade based on his performance, but I do recognize that the injury ended his chance to improve on it during Summer League. Next, with the 52nd pick, it's Henry Vassar, and I think Vassar showed useful skills, but also why he needs to develop more. He averaged 10 points, hit 39% from 3, and blocked 1.5 shots per game, and Vassar was able to space the floor, he screened well, and flashed touch as a roller on pick and rolls as well. The rebounding, though, was disappointing for me for a 7-footer, and he struggled to score when the jumper was not there. Atlanta can definitely develop him in the G League like most of these second-round picks will, but I'm giving Vassar a B- grade because the shooting was a highlight and the rim protection was great, but if he's not going to rebound well as a 7-footer, then there's a lot to work on. Another second-round big comes in with the 53rd pick, and that's Ugonna Onyensu from the Detroit Pistons, and he looked raw offensively to say the least, but he was dangerous around the rim. Now, he only averaged 3 points on 33% shooting, but collected 5 rebounds and 2 blocks in fewer than 18 minutes per game. He did have a 5-block performance, which showed his defensive ceiling, and he even made 2 threes, offering a small glimpse of future spacing. Now, Detroit is going to develop him slowly on a 2-way contract, contract, but I'm giving Onyensu a C grade because the defense translated and he looks like one of the best shot blockers in this rookie class, but nearly everything else offensively needs work. The Golden State Warriors had the 54th pick in the draft, and they took LeJay Jones, and I think he made good use of his limited minutes in the Summer League. He averaged nearly 9 points and 3 rebounds in just 16 minutes per game, while shooting 49% from the field, and Jones definitely improved after an uneven California Classic and played with more confidence in Las Vegas, it seemed. Now, he still looks raw as a decision maker and a shooter, but his overall size, his activity, and his scoring efficiency were encouraging to me, and I'm giving Jones a B grade because Golden State definitely can develop him without asking for immediate rotation responsibility, but I do think he played a role in Golden State winning the Summer League championship. Next up, we got Nick Martinelli, and I think he was far more productive than I expected. He averaged 15 points, 6.5 rebounds, while shooting 60.5% overall and going 50% from deep. Martinelli showed the ability to finish around the basket. He rebounded well and played with excellent timing, but the biggest concern I still have is his positional fit because he lacks ideal size for a power forward and quickness for a wing, and I saw that a bit in the Summer League. And becoming a high volume shooter may decide his NBA future, so shooting 50% from 3 was a highlight, so I'm giving him a B+ grade. I think there's definitely some limitations that remain, but the production overall was impossible to ignore. Then at number 56, we have Vesivold Ishchenko for the Dallas Mavericks, and I think he exceeded expectations with a complete two-way performance. He averaged 9.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 stocks while shooting 40% from 3, and Ishchenko defended top scorers including Cameron Boozer well, moved constantly, and showed surprising passing creativity to me. Now, the turnovers and the inconsistent mechanics need some work, but I think Dallas might have found a smart competitive connector here late in the second round. And I'm giving him a B+ grade for his performance in the Summer League because for a late pick, he looked remarkably comfortable. Pick number 57 in the draft was from the Los Angeles Clippers, and they took Narcisse Ngoy, but he did not play in Summer League as he will remain at Auburn next season while the Clippers retain his rights, so I'm unable to give him a grade. But then at number 58, it was the New Orleans Pelicans who selected Jerome Pierre Jr., and in his Summer League, he had a disappointing time. The 24-year-old averaged just 10 points, but shot 27% overall and 17.5% from 3, while adding fewer than 1 assist per game. And because Pierre is older than most players in the Summer League, more was expected from me. He did not create efficiently on the offensive end or contribute enough elsewhere to offset the missed shots that he had. I'm giving him a D+ grade. New Orleans is going to need a stronger case for him in order to compete for rotation minutes, and in the Summer League, he just didn't give that. The 59th pick in the draft was Trey Kaufman-Renn for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he played a limited role, but I think he produced modest results in his time in Las Vegas. He averaged 6.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, and only 13 minutes per game, while shooting 52.5% from the field. Now, the efficiency was definitely solid, but he did not show much from the perimeter in the playmaking department or even impact on the defensive end, and at nearly 24 years old, he needed to look more advanced than younger competition in order to show that he can get minutes, so I'm giving Kaufman-Renn a C grade. I think he was serviceable in a Summer League setting, but he did not make a strong case for minutes in the NBA. And lastly, we have the 60th and final pick of this year's draft in Malik Lewis, and in the Summer League, he struggled to find a role to say the least. He averaged 2.5 points on 16.5% shooting and fewer than 9 minutes per game. Lewis is going to be best used as a 3-and-D specialist, but Summer League often forced him to create off the dribble, which exposed his limitations on the offensive end of the floor. And the small sample size and the role deserve some context, yet he still made little impact across the California Classic and the Las Vegas Summer League. So overall, I'm giving Lewis a D grade. I think Milwaukee is going to need him to develop, which was always expected, but from what I saw, it's going to take a bit longer than expected. But that wraps it up for my official grades on the rookies for the 2026 NBA Summer League. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and let me know if you thought someone should have been graded higher or lower. Also, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.